there. Today I want to talk about a video on TikTok that was brought to my attention, and I want to give full credit to where it's due. So the woman who did this video is, I'm not going to be great with her name, I admit that now. She's from Nigeria, I believe, and her name is, I'm looking down at my notes, Wemi Opakunle. And she told this story.
I recently saw this video with the actress Anne Hathaway, and it was declaring how she was back and better than ever, and she was amazing. I peeked in the comments, which I entered with caution, because sometimes you gotta sage yourself to enter and leave some of these grimy comment sections. But it was interesting. People were like, love Anne, always been an Anne stan, she's always been a favorite, she's the best, she's the greatest. And I had to pause, because I do not know Miss Hathaway or a lot about her, but I distinctly remember something. I distinctly remember the horrible hate and extensive vitriol that she received just for being herself years ago. I distinctly remember a group of people calling themselves Hatha-haters and existing just to destroy and crap on another human being. Now, this story had me thinking of a Yoruba folktale from Nigeria that my mom once told me. The folktale goes, in the animal kingdom, the lion has always been seen and known as the king of the jungle. But one day, a group of animals approached the elephants and said, you know what? You should be king, not the lion. You're strong. You can take out anything in your way. You should be king. The elephant said, no thank you, not interested, but the other animals continued to press the elephant on this. They said, don't you realize who you are? You're great, big, strong, mighty. You should be king. You will be king. The elephant started to soften to this idea, and finally he got excited. He said, you know what? Let's do this. While the same people who went to the elephant to convince him to be king then went back to the lion to tell him that the elephant wanted his throne. They told the lion, you know what? We have your back. Don't worry. You are king. No one will ever overthrow you. Here's what we're gonna do. Fast forward, and they've planned an event to honor the elephant. They'd also dug a hole, and then they used expensive woven fabric to cover that hole. They started singing at the event, praising the elephant, screaming his name. We love you. You are the king. The elephant, as big and powerful as he was, but apparently not so bright, was so focused on the praise that he missed the trap. They told the elephant to sit in the place specially created for him, which was the hole covered with fancy clothes. The elephant unfortunately fell into the hole, and they killed him. The same people that will applaud you will also destroy you. You're the best singer, rapper, speaker, writer, influencer. From a historical, not religious perspective, the same people that screamed, Hosanna, Jesus is king, also screamed, crucify him. Humans can be fickle. Know yourself and your worth, and take it all, compliments and criticisms, with a grain of salt. Be conscious and aware of what's happening around you, and use your intuition to guide you. Don't let the superficiality, the noise, and the praise drown out that intuition. And please remember, if you give people the power to make you, you are also giving them the power to break you.
It tells a story about an elephant and a lion and some animals that are trying to convince the elephant of something. And here's why I want to talk about it. Because it's very clear in the story, if you've been listening to any of my videos and following along, with the Easa lens of self-esteem. E is for esteem, A is for achievements, S is for society, and the final A is for attributes and assets. Does my personal worth or value stem from any of those outside sources, or do I know in my core that I have worth because I was born? That's here, the core. I have worth because I was born. I am enough and I matter. I can hold myself in warm regard in spite of my flaws and imperfections. So that's inherent worth versus those outside sources. And in this story, it is very clear that the elephant becomes influenced by the other animals, which is outside esteem, outside society-based, I'll go ahead and name it, society-based esteem. He lets these other animals or creatures totally get into his head, and it ends up biting him in the bum. So one, it was brought to my attention because it's the same lens. Like my assistant was watching it and said, this is totally your stuff. So I think it's really interesting that it's the society-based esteem. I also love how much this is not new information. This Easa lens, it may be a new way to phrase it. It's not new information, specifically in the therapy world. We've just been calling it different things since, forever. There's also folklore from other lands and other times that tell the same stories. That inherent worth comes from the inside. And it's just when you know nothing throughout life that you say or do adds to your worth nor detracts from your worth. You have inherent worth just because you were born. And you don't need other people to give you that worth. If you're in society-based, you do. That's kind of what the story is saying. And the story is saying, when you hear the whole story about this poor elephant, you can hear that he listened to the other creatures. He let them in his head, and it messed him up. When we are looking to other people for their approval of us, or their lack of approval of us, like I think I've said when I was in college, if the boy didn't like me, what's wrong with me? So that's lack of approval. I wasn't good enough because the boy didn't like me. That's outside esteem, and it will always leave you unfulfilled. The other part of the story that jumped out to me is I don't do a lot of talk on my videos about boundaries. And yet, well, I've done some. There's the containment boundary. I don't have to speak everything I think and feel. And the protective boundary, which is I don't have to absorb everything I hear. And in this story, boundaries really came up for me as well, because all I could think of on the elephant's behalf was, I wonder what's going on for those other creatures that they felt the need to guide him in this way. And I'm saddened by that. So I wish that the elephant had better boundaries to not absorb basically the crap that they were throwing at him, which was good and bad crap, by the way. They're throwing compliments and all this stuff at him, and then they end up betraying him anyway. So that's why I say it was good and bad stuff they're throwing at him. So if his boundaries were in place, he would not have absorbed their compliments, which took him down the wrong path later. So this was a boundary story. And like I said, the self-esteem story of society-based esteem that the elephant didn't. At the beginning, the elephant is just happy in himself. And even says like, no, I'm kind of happy doing my own thing. Leave me alone. And then he tips into society-based esteem. There's that. I thought this was a wonderful story. I was so happy that she came out and said it because I've never heard of this story before. And I also just wanted to do a brief reminder today that why do I focus so much on self-esteem when I am your decision diva? Because I firmly believe that many times that we get stumped in whether we want to say yes or we want to say no, we get stumped because we're in an outside source of self-esteem, possibly society-based. I can't say yes or no, whichever one I really mean in the moment, because of how the other person may interpret me. So there's the link. Head on over to yourdecisiondiva.com to get a handy little printout of all these things, because I am your decision diva. I am your queen of clarity, and I'll catch you next time.